Testing. Check. Testing.
Or should I just leave that? Well, that's fine. Yeah, just, I don't know what schooling is or if it's stop itself or what. Yeah, or that.
God, I hope it's not doing that thing again. Could you do me a favor, Miles? Would you have that up just in case? I don't know if it's saying I'm using audio.
Yeah, Laura, we can hear you.
I'm just afraid. Remember what happened last week?
Yeah.
I mean, I could sit down and do the thing. I'm afraid it's going to do that. I don't know what's going on. I haven't had a problem with this before.
Morning, Carl. Laura, good morning. Are you talking? It says you're muted.
Just go ahead, Mark. Don't worry about it. I mean, I got things I can do. Just call me afterward and let me know how it went.
Hello.
You okay?
Morning, can everybody hear me?
Yes, I can hear. This is Jorge Melo.
Yeah, this is Daniel Sirk. I can hear you.
Okay, that's better.
Details.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the January 25th, 2024 Landmarks Commission meeting. It's nice to see everybody virtually and in person. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio Open Meeting Law and Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest shall be stated for the record prior to the beginning of the presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found on the participants panel on the desktop version and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking the raised hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through the proper channels have been considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to the email address landmarks@clevelandohio.gov with a comment or letter, calling or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the commission members prior to any scheduled meeting.
All right, I'll just go over our virtual meeting rules and procedures. The chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review committee recommendations and any public comment received. The deadline for public comment is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting. Staff will also identify any members of the public present and scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff. The commission will then begin deliberation and project review. Any commission member except the chair may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
Thank you. We will call the January 25th, 2024 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
And Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dryer?
Here.
Mr. Dulick?
Here.
Councilmember Gray? Director Wong?
Here.
Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Mr. Sambry? Mr. Strickland? Mr. Trosick?
Here.
Dr. Williams? And Ms. Trott.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have quorum. In addition to the commission members, we have Kevin Roberts from the law, our representative from the law department here, as well as Jessica Beam Carlbrand is myself from Landmark staff.
Excellent. We'll begin with our certificates of appropriateness. We would like to welcome our first applicants to unmute your mic, announce yourself.
Oh yeah, we need to untable.
Oh, I'm sorry. The first case we will untable first case is located at 5817 Detroit Avenue, the Gordon Square Historic District's revisions to renovations. We'll first request someone to make a motion to untable.
I'll make the motion.
So we have a motion from Alan.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. So we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Oh, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes.
All right, so now we'd like to welcome the applicant to unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project. Since we just saw this last week, we'd like you to focus on and highlight for us the changes from last week versus going through the entire presentation again.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Mark Demchuk. And Jim Travato own this property, and Brian Jurassic is our architect with this project. At the last meeting, we were in discussion and agreement to take down the half roof and make the doors upstairs to a 2-door. One thing I'd like to, I'll use the word plead to the committee, is Jim and I, after revisiting this and the expenses got out of control to take down this roof and to take the doors out. It's going to be roughly 12 to 15. Well, the doors themselves cost $6,000, and then new doors cost $4,700. And then the roof will be anywhere between. By the time you take the roof down and replace all the hardy board, it'll be another, let's say, $5,000. So it's becoming a very, very expensive deal. So my proposition to the committee, this building below, the brick building on the first floor with the 4 windows, that wasn't not the original building. Because if you, I think back in, I looked at in 1895, it was not the original building. Somebody put it up. I don't know what that, I could not find what year they put it up. Be this said, if you look at the 2 houses to the west of me, they're exactly the same distance from the street. And again, this this extension was built sometimes probably in the mid-1900s, 1940, 50, something like that. So what I'd like to do is, I will make, if we can compromise on this, I will make the 2 doors, I'll take the 4 doors out and I'll make it 2 doors. And if I could keep the roof, because architecturally and eye pleasing, this extension, if you don't have that roof, it just looks like a big thumb sticking out. And it's not, it just doesn't look right architecturally and even to the human eye. With the half roof, it serves 2 purposes. People can enjoy sitting in the balcony even on a rainy day. It's a 3-season type of a situation. And also it gives a transition from this thumb, I'm using a thumb sticking out, like a sore thumb sticking out, to a half roof and then to the final original peak. So it gives a nice, flow from the first floor all the way to the peak of the house. So I was wondering if, again, I'll use the word plead, if we could compromise, and I'll make it 2 doors, but if I could keep the half roof, I certainly would appreciate it.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation and the summary of your proposal. We'll then move on to Landmark staff recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. We saw this project, as Mr. Demchik mentioned, at our last meeting, and the commission made comments based on that presentation. Our applicant has taken those comments and made some changes to his proposal. Since we gave a lengthy history of the project and staff report on this project at our last meeting, I'm not going to reiterate everything. I'd just like to remind everyone that we're tasked with applying the Secretary of the Interior standards, and of the several that are relevant to this proposal, numbered in red on the screen, we feel that standard number 9 is the most critical and relevant for this case to consider.
Great. Thank you for that summary. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off?
Madam Chair, may I add some more context in answer to some of the comments that were made by the applicant?
Yes.
The storefront that is in the front of this building would have been built prior to 1929 when the zoning code went into effect. These small storefronts were common throughout the city. There are many still in existence. So that's when this would date to, no later than that. It has been altered, obviously, from its original at that time, but you see them all over the place. So I just want to put a little bit more context for that.
Okay, thank you. Questions or comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson?
Yeah, I recall that there was a permit that was given for this.
The permit was issued for interior work, and then I guess that's the only permit that's been issued, is my understanding. It was interior work only. Carl might know more.
This has been a multiple issue between building and housing and things. When the original permit was applied for, there was an original permit, and then that was voided out. Then a second one came in that was approved. It said interior, but there was exterior work also being done that was not documented, and it wasn't caught, even though they're adding the dormer in that rear portion has been added. It was a much lower flat roof originally. And then subsequent additional work is being done. Someone from the public contacted Building and Housing and asked for an inspector to go out, and basically no violation notice had ever been issued despite repeated complaints.
Okay, well then I will start us off. I mean, I think I appreciate you being open to replacing the doors on the second floor to what was originally presented. I think it's a better solution and aligns with the original integrity of the house. Related to the roof, I'm still weighing that in my mind. I mean, I do appreciate or understand, sympathize with the cost, of removing this, but it does change the architectural, significance of the house or direction of the house. With that being said, the first floor also altered the original configuration of the house. So right now, I'm leaning towards being open to maintaining it. But I think that's something we have to recognize is that, the work was done without a permit. And, we sympathize with you, but it's sort of the process that has, in the position that we're in, that's causing us to be here and moving
Right.
forward with the work. So that is my feedback right now. Other commission members, questions or comments?
I have a question. This is regarding actually the first floor. In the front on the storefront area. When I drove by the property, the windows that were in there were like smaller than the original opening, and there was like OSB filling in the difference. I was just wondering what was approved for those windows, and if it's the larger set of windows, or was the smaller windows approved, or does anybody know?
Can I speak, please?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay, in this, I think we have some new people on here from the first meeting, and I thought the only thing we're going to be talking about today is the 2 doors and the roof to get approved or not approved, but the windows and everything. This was an egress purpose in case of a fire or anything like that. That's why those windows are. But again, though, we have new people here for this meeting, and I thought we were just concentrating on the front roof. No disrespect, I'm just saying, I thought we were concentrating on the front roof and the 2 doors.
Last meeting, to your point, we had stated that, everyone was comfortable with the approaches for the side windows and the rear. The areas of contention or why we tabled it was related to the front elevation. The windows and the roof were the primary areas of concern.
This is the front elevation.
Yes.
Right. I don't remember the answer because I think the drawing in front of us is what was presented as, the work was specifically supposed to align with that. Did you install the windows to the size that is shown on the front elevation that is on the screen?
Did I? What? I'm sorry. Did I?
Have you updated the windows on the storefront? Or do you intend?
Is it on the bottom left?
Correct.
I mean,
yes.
The front doors, yes. Is that what you're asking me? I mean, I don't.
I don't believe she's referring to the second floor windows. I believe she's talking about the first floor, like the the former commercial display windows.
Correct.
Those are exactly the same, except they're new windows. Don't get me wrong, but they're exactly what was there before.
What, I guess, does that match what's shown in this drawing? Because it sounds like there's someone
Yes.
saw it and there's some framing around it that isn't shown in the drawings. So we're just trying to confirm if this is an accurate drawing, compared to what has been built in reality, or if there's a variation there.
No, it should be exactly what's on this print. I would say yes. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't want to. It's exactly. We built it exactly what the print says.
Okay. Other questions or comments, Ms. Anderson?
we don't have a photo of the current condition, correct?
No.
Pull it up from the last.
A photo of what?
Photo of the front elevation.
Not in this presentation right now. Mr. Musson will try to pull it up from the last presentation, but any other questions or comments about, we stay focused on the second floor? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is the first time I'm seeing it. And I appreciate the work that's been done to get us to this point. My comment, looking at it with sort of a fresh set of eyes, is, had this gone through the proper channels from the beginning, i.e. coming to this body, coming to the design review committee, there may have been a reality where that front porch extension would be allowed, but I don't know that it would be allowed in this current representation. So I'm grappling with, again, the fact that this hasn't gone through the proper channels and hasn't given this body or other review bodies a chance to request or suggest revisions to what the roof line, the pitch, all of that before it being built. So I understand sort of the cost challenges related to this already being done, but I don't know that I would necessarily support that extension in its current configuration. And I think seeing if Mr. Musson is able to find a photo of the house in its current state, that may help me understand a little bit better what we're looking at, because it's a little bit difficult to understand from a flat elevation what it actually looks like.
Have you ever seen this building?
I have, yes, and I live in the neighborhood, so I haven't been past and noticed it, in its current state, but I'm looking at a Google Street View on my screen before the renovations were complete, and in that state, it's very complementary to the two buildings next door. And I think, again, not seeing a photo of what it looks like today or recognizing it in its current state, to me, what I'm seeing sort of before renovation is much more complementary to the fabric of this area of the street than what I'm seeing as a flat elevation proposed in this presentation.
Right.
Bottom line, what are you saying? Are you saying you don't think the roof is appealing to the building, or what are you?
I'm saying that in what I'm seeing in this sort of flat elevation, to me, it does not feel compatible with the rest of the integrity of the street and complementary to the house as originally in its previous condition, and in comparison to the two neighboring houses. But again, I'm looking at a flat elevation. It's hard for me to really understand what I'm actually seeing without seeing a photo or seeing it in person.
Okay, I'm just confused because you say you live in the neighborhood and you have seen it, and then two houses to the west, those are the original buildings, and this storefront was not the original.
No, I understand that. I understand that. But looking at it, so I'm looking at a Google Street View right now, and this is, as construction is happening. So it does not have the new porch extension roof. And to me, even with the storefront that was added in its history below, you've changed the character of what happens above that line. And it obscures the roof line of the original house. And that original roof line is matched by the two neighboring houses next door. So at one point in history, these may have all been sort of triplets. At some point in time, the storefront on this property was added, which changed the dynamic of those three. And now with this renovation and addition, it's further changed that dynamic between the three. So I'm one voice as part of this committee. So I appreciate other perspectives from my fellow committee members.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Director Wong?
Thank you to the chair. And if I may, just for a process and point of order, I'd like to request that all parties refer to one another through the chair for an orderly discussion. I do have a few questions just for background, because this is my first time seeing this project as well. To the staff, through the chair, was there a design review committee recommendation from this? I apologize if I missed that.
Through the chair to the director, yes, there was a report. We gave that last week. This project was actually reviewed by the commission a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago now, and it was approved. When it went to construction, permits weren't really pulled properly. There was some, there was an interior permit pulled, but no exterior permit. Exterior work was obviously being done. We had a lot of, back and forth with building and housing, trying to get them to go out and acknowledge that work was being done on the exterior. And that, was non-productive. And so at this point, the majority of the work is done. And so Mr. Demchuk was here last meeting to ask for approval of what was built as opposed to what was previously approved. So the windows on the second floor now more closely match what was originally approved. So we're just, looking at that roof that extends out over the second floor porch. I don't know, do either of you have the comments?
Just to clarify, did the design review committee look at this new proposal?
No, this went directly, since it was a revision to a commission approval. Even though it was from a couple of years ago, it came straight to the commission. So it hasn't gone to design review anytime recently.
Thank you. I think my only comment to wrap up is that this is such a critical commercial corridor. And so, I would really advise that, we take a strong look at this, and that, to the applicant through the chair, that, that we consider going through a very robust and regular process for this. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Wong. So we are still trying to get the image visible to others, but we aren't able to. For the existing conditions, we did verify through the presentation that was previously submitted 2 weeks ago that, in fact, the windows on the first floor storefront does not also match the drawing that is on the screen. There's actually 2 windows, 2 dual windows versus a continuous storefront as illustrated on the screen.
Yeah, Madam Chair, if I can, it appears that it's, apparently like 2 sets of windows, or, 2 pairs of casements, or I don't know if they operate or not, but then a 4 to 6 inch mullion between them, and then maybe a 6 to 8 inch area between the window sill and, the opening in the masonry and where those windows start. So there's a stronger vertical division in the center, and then heavier trim across the bottom. I apologize, I can't get this picture to cooperate.
Right.
I got it on the screen, I just can't do anything.
Yeah. Okay, other questions or comments from the commission?
Madam Chair, because this building has been altered a great deal, and there are some of these second floor porches on other buildings nearby, I might be willing to give the applicant his porch, but the doors need to be addressed, and the first floor windows need to conform with what's on the drawing that we approved. And it does not appear that the windows that are boxed in with the OSB are consistent with that drawing. So that's where I'm coming from. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions or comments, or would someone like to put forward a motion? Any other questions or comments, or would someone like to put forward a motion? Ms. Anderson?
No. Should I move that we approve the addition of that porch, but with the doors the way we originally approved the doors, and for the first floor windows to be consistent with what we approved originally?
So point of clarification to Mr. Brunges, we didn't make a motion on anything last time. We tabled everything associated with it. Correct?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
It was just tabled
In totality.
in totality, so, but we asked that they go back to revisit those other elements.
But we originally approved this project with a different configuration for the doors and for the first floor windows a few years ago.
Yes, it's been about it's been 2 years.
Okay.
But the process has been going on for.
So just to clarify, the motion that is on the table is to approve then as presented in requiring the front elevation, though, to match the drawing that was submitted versus the existing conditions, which would require the modification to the doors on the second floor to match what is in the drawings, a single pair of doors, and modification to the first floor storefront so that it is a continuous storefront versus the pair of windows. Is that correct, Michelle?
Correct.
Okay. Making sure we understand the motion is very clear what we're approving and not approving. Mr. Musson, you got that?
Some version of it.
Okay.
We have tape to get the wording correct.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion. Do we have a second? So the motion then fails. Do we have an alternate motion that someone would like to put forward?
Madam Chair? Would it be possible to table this again, or?
It is possible, but we'd have to ask what's the point, what would we like to accomplish by tabling it? Mr.
Well, obviously,
Anderson?
nobody's really
We
stepping up.
need to give the owner a direction, in my opinion. We did table last week for them to do some due diligence and come back to us. So that's my personal feeling is we need to give the owner direction. Would someone like to I see Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. What I might recommend is coming back with some photos of the current conditions, updated drawings and elevations that match what is currently in place, so that we're able to have a better conversation around what is being proposed versus what is its current condition. Again, I think it would be helpful for me to see and understand what is actually there today, what is documented in drawing form, so that we're able to comment appropriately. Again, as one of my fellow committee members mentioned, the first story windows, the storefront windows are not drawn accurately. So if that's something that we would recommend changing out and replacing with what's currently being shown on the drawings, that would be another recommendation that could come forth from further discussion.
I think that is what is the motion that was previously put forward, was to modify the existing conditions to match the drawings that were presented. Because the existing conditions, and we apologize you haven't seen it, but it was presented by the owner last week or 2 weeks ago. Sorry, it feels like it was just a week ago in my mind. 2 weeks ago, they did present the existing conditions.
Understood. Thank you.
So would someone like to put forward a motion, Mr. Brunges?
Excuse me, may I say something?
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, so again, this is my first time going through the landmark. And the last meeting we had, the only thing in concern was the upstairs windows and the roofs. Everything else that's the only thing I had to correct. Now we have some new people here, and now we have other things being brought up. People here, I can have 1,000 different topics come up. So I don't understand the procedure. I thought we were concentrating, only 2 things left was the roof and the 4 doors. And everything else was approved last week. So please clarify.
Yes, we can clarify that. Previously, we were primarily focusing on the second floor doors and the roof addition. But it was just discovered, it was the front elevation was the primary concern and our focus. It was just discovered though that, last 2 weeks ago, you did state that everything that was installed matches the drawings that were submitted. And unfortunately, we just discovered that your first floor windows also do not match what is shown on those drawings. So that is a new item, but it is relevant. There was no approval 2 weeks ago. It was, we were aligned and could approve everything that was the additions on the back and the window modifications to the sides, but the front elevation was in the primary focus 2 weeks ago because you had stated that the windows were installed, in fact, to match what was on the drawings. And we just can see now in your photos you submitted 2 weeks ago that they're not. So that is a new item, but all relevant to the front elevation. Mr. Tarasik.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have one question. That question is between last meeting and this meeting. How much, if any, discussion was had between the applicant and staff to try and resolve some of these issues?
Through the chair, I spoke with the applicant for, yes, we had some email exchanges and a fairly lengthy phone call where we discussed, basically summarized what was discussed at the last meeting. We talked about, the windows on the second floor primarily and the half porch roof. We didn't really discuss, the first floor windows. Last meeting, the commission seemed open and fine with the work that had been done in the rear. So I guess, you're getting the abridged version of the discussion, but yeah, I mean, we did have some back and forth. I encouraged him to, come forward with the updated drawing showing the appropriate windows on the second floor, and informed him that if he really wanted to push for the half roof over the porch in the front to remain, that he should include those in his drawings and make that part of his presentation, and that the commission would likely either accept his proposal or deny it. We did not discuss the window, the windows on the first floor at all. It just did not come up.
Very good, thank you.
Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to make a motion? We do need to move this along.
Madam Chair,
Mr. Brunges?
if this is tabled that will give staff an opportunity to gather all information for the entire history, including visuals, was originally approved, not approved, go back to everything, and that everybody for this commission should have the entire story and everything, so they can make a fully informed decision. Just think, see, when we can go out, we can take the pictures, we can do all the documentation, we can make sure this is done right. And we can do that for our next meeting, first February,
That will,
as an option.
okay?
I couldn't hear a word he said.
So what he has said is that, if this, since the motions are not coming as, at this time, if you were tabled again, staff could go out and take the appropriate, existing, current, photographs of, what has been installed and what has not, what aligns with the drawings that are in front of us, what does not. Because obviously that there's still ambiguity to that based on what we just discovered on the first floor windows. And then we would make a ruling next meeting. So that is an option. You would need to approve that for us to move forward with tabling you again, or you can request us to make a ruling.
Okay, so your ambiguity, okay, so the biggest concern is now the windows on the first floor?
No, it's always
Or
been the
is
front
it-
elevation. Everything involving the front elevation is what, I think our focus was last meeting. Because the most obvious difference from the drawings that you've submitted that were approved and what has actually been constructed was those two second floor openings and the roof. Based on what was stated before, we assumed that the first floor windows were installed, in fact, aligned with what the drawing is on the screen. So it's everything related to that front elevation is what we're focusing on.
Bullet point, you want, is the first floor windows, the second floor doors, and the second floor roof, right?
And
3 bullet points.
Correct.
Right?
And the brackets, if the roof is not there, those were the primary focuses of the previous meeting.
And to the chair,
But hold on
Mr.
one
Brent
second.
as Mr. Brent just stated, staff is more than happy to, if this is tabled, go out and photograph and assess the as-built conditions, compare them to the original drawings, and compare those to the drawings that are being presented today, and highlight any deviation between those.
But to the 3 bullet points, well, maybe 4 because of the corbels, but that's no big deal. Okay, so we're okay with the 2 doors. So now our the 2 bullet points left is the front windows and the half roof, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So then how long does it take people to go look at this, take pictures and assess everything? And then is that in another 2 weeks now?
It would be our next meeting is in fact 2 weeks.
3 weeks.
3 weeks.
February 8th.
February 8th. So that is an option that that has been put forward. But we would need your permission to table you again to make sure that we're all aligned in fact of what was installed versus. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So for all the new people now, everybody has to understand, and I'm sorry I'm being redundant again, but unfortunately I am the owner, myself and my partner Jim are the owner. We had a GC that was a partner. He's no longer a partner, and he did things, and I agree with you 100%, not to print. Jim and myself, we do everything to print. And this is, again, I'm being redundant to some of you, but it's something that was beyond my, he just did things he wasn't supposed to do. That's why we got rid of it. So if you could take your pictures and please understand everything that he's done, because we will, moving forward, as I promised the committee last week, that we would do everything to the print, everything to the city, everything to Landmark, everything. It's just, we had one bad apple in our barrel, and he's caused a lot of rift between, myself and the committee. Not rift, but it's very frustrating to me. So please, I'll agree, but in consideration, those 4 windows, they look very good with the 2 doors up on top, as you can see in the bottom left. Architecturally, the house is beautiful. It was run down before. The houses next to me are run down. I'm trying to beautify. I grew up in this neighborhood. I'm trying to beautify this neighborhood. And it just makes logical sense. And everybody I talk to, including people from the city, that front roof makes this so appealing because of that eyesore that's sticking out that was never approved. But anyway, I'm trying to have an architectural transgression. And so I just hope everybody can take this all in consideration. And it sounds like I'm groveling. I probably am, because it's been very frustrating 2 years for me because I had a bad partner. But again, my partner, is no longer with us. But at this point forward, we'll do everything to the city's specifications. And so I will, yes, let's please table this, and I'll see you in 3 weeks.
Okay, well, thank you for your approval to table. Do we have a motion that to table?
I'll move the table.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Right, we have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Messam, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Director Wong,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, and feel free to reach out to staff offline to discuss anything in between now and the next meeting. We appreciate your understanding.
Okay.
Yes, hello.
Yes, sorry.
We'll now move on to our next applicant, located 10624 Grantwood Avenue, window replacement. This was previously approved last week on 1/11/2024. I'd like to welcome the applicant to tell us about the changes from what you presented and was approved last week or 2 weeks ago. I'll eventually, by the end of the meeting, say it correctly.
Good morning. Can you hear me, Your Honors?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, my name is Jorge Melo. I was not in the meetings before. It was Mr. Michael Hartley. He's the person, the agent from Windows World, the one that was trying to get all this approved. And he told me that the front windows didn't get approved. And I'm trying just to, get your support on this because I invested on this property and I'm trying to make it functional because the windows are basically unfunctional completely. And I'm trying to replace all the windows, almost all the windows from the house. And just the front windows that didn't get approved, I got 3 different estimates from 3 different companies. And Windows World estimate for the front windows is $6,910. And then another quote is from Infinitive Marvin. That is $16,872.10. And the last one is the Renewal Anderson, is for $23,063. So that's very expensive. I cannot afford those prices. I got a Windows World is doing basically all the windows for a lower price than that. And I need your your support on that. I'm trying to make this place safer. I don't want to have any hazards because the windows right now, are not functional completely. And I'm trying to do my best. To make the people living there, more comfortable and safer.
Thank you for the presentation and bringing this information forward. We do appreciate it. We'll then move on to Landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, as we noted, was approved previously with the removal of the front windows. We should note that Vinyl replacement windows were approved on the sides and the rear, but not on the front of the house. The commission had asked for a more appropriate material on the front, and this has been a consistent requirement of the Landmarks Commission in my time here, so we're going on 8 years at least, and if not longer. We understand that there is a cost difference, and but we have to maintain the integrity as best we can of the historic districts. So we would still recommend sticking with, we understand the applicant's concerns, but we have our job we have to do as well, so we recommend the higher product on the front.
Okay, thank you. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off?
May I
Would like to
please,
start?
sorry, may I please say something?
One moment. We just transitioned to the commission for questions and
Okay.
comments.
Absolutely.
All right, so I guess I will start us off on that. I do understand the hardship that this does cause, to projects, and that's why we do try to make concessions related to the sides and the rear, because we understand that it can be onerous with the amount of windows that are in houses like yours. But at this time, I do align with staff of the recommendation of the upgraded material at the front only, to allow it to meet the standards, but allow the concessions that were approved last meeting. Other questions and comments from commission? Other questions and comments from the commission? Would someone like to make a motion? Would someone like to make a motion if there are no other questions or comments? We do need to move things along, please. Other questions or comments from the commission, or would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Dryer.
I guess if we've already, if we are not changing our previous motion, do we need a new one? I guess is the question.
Mr. Dryer, your mic broke up there. Could you repeat what you just said?
Yeah, if we're not changing our previous action, is a new motion required?
Well, I think he is asking for approval of vinyl windows on the front of the building here. We previously approved the 3 other elevations. We did not approve the front elevation. So it's my understanding, is that correct, Mr. Brundges and Mr. Musson?
Madam Chair, I think we would, the motion would be to uphold our previous. And I think we should probably ask Mr. Roberts for some guidance on that. Just because I would think it's just the motion would be to uphold our previous decision.
Madam Chair, it's unfortunate, Mr. Roberts, 2 minutes ago said he had to step away until 10 o'clock, so.
Okay. We have 6 minutes.
So I think the motion would be to uphold previous and deny the vinyl on the front.
Okay. Mr. Milo, you had asked if you could make another statement. If you'd like to go ahead while we work through this, go ahead. Feel free to proceed.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. My question is because as you saw the estimates, those are very elevated. Is there any ways, because we do vinyl, the vinyl goes inside basically the frame. I don't know how that can affect, the visual is going to be functional, nicer than what it is right now, because right now nothing works basically. So is there any ways we can make it, a compromise or make it still install vinyl and add something to make it, look nicer, but cheaper, because that's a lot of money. I mean, right now, if I want to do those 10 windows, front windows with upgraded materials, I would be happy to do it if we have the money. But I mean, I want to make sure that everything is fine in the house. I mean, I want to make it that is going to improve the neighborhood too. I mean, there are other houses that are basically totally trashed there. I mean, and I want to, do my best to make this place look nicer. So I would be, happy if you consider reconsider this. Because that was going to support me a lot and support the neighborhood too.
And we understand and appreciate your investment and truly your concern and focus on the neighborhood along with your house. I think that's why we're still under discussion here. Director Wong. Director Wong?
See here.
Oh, she dropped down. Okay, Mr. Lozier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess I have a couple of questions. Are there any city or county grants that could be applied for that could help with payment of these upgraded windows?
Through the chair to Mr. Lozier and the commission, there are a few programs out of the Department of Community Development. The SHAP, or Senior Housing Assistance Repair Program, not sure if that's applicable. The Repair a Home program. We also have a lead hazard control program that a lot of people use to get new windows. I'm not sure what the criteria for all those are. There's also, I believe at the county, there's the HELP loan, which is an acronym for something, HELP. And then I don't know if the cash program is still around either, but there are programs available through the city and through the Cuyahoga County that might be of assistance. But again, they have, some of them have income qualifications, some of them have age criteria, so I'm not sure what, if any, would be a good fit here.
Thank you. I do have one more just clarification question. The prices that were quoted, were those just for the front windows, or was that for all of the windows?
Just the front 10 windows, sorry.
Thank you.
No problem, thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Lozier?
Sorry, I do have one more question. Has the applicant investigated any of the city or county grants to help with the cost of the upgraded windows? And is that something that the applicant would be willing to look into before this body makes a final determination?
Yeah, may I answer?
Yes.
Yes, no, I haven't. I didn't need it. I didn't know about it. So that's something that I would be happy to look at. That's the case. Yeah.
So Mr. Milo, then we have two options to move forward. We could either table you related to this to allow you the opportunity to look into those loans to see what's available and which option you may be able to move forward with. And we understand there is a big cost difference and those loans might be able to bridge the gap. Or we would need your permission though to table you to allow you that time, or you can request us to move forward with a motion. How would you like
yes, thank you. Yes, I would like to give it a try and go to do my research about with the city and county and check if there are any grants that can support me on this, because I really would like to comply and make everything, to the standards, right? But just the cost is the problem. Yes.
Understand. So with your permission, if you could reach out to staff offline and they can give you those resources, the list of resources that you could look into.
Yes, please. Yeah.
Okay, so we do have permission from the owner to table. Would someone like to make a motion? Or do we need to
I guess
motion?
just,
Point of
I
clarification?
guess point of order, Madam Chair, or I guess is another option. If the applicant, since he already has an approved project with the windows on the sides and rear being approved at our last meeting, if the applicant would like to withdraw his application at this point, he can investigate those programs, and staff is more than willing to help out in any way we can. And then he could reapply after he has an answer to some of those questions, and then his previous approval would still stand. So
Right.
he could move forward with the sides and rear work while the front is being figured out.
Mr.
Just
Milo,
as
does
an option.
that make sense? So that, if you withdraw your application right now, you have been approved to do the work on your 3 elevations, just not the front. You could start that work as soon as your permit is, finalized and through the process, the building department. If the other option is if we proceed the way I just said and table you, you'd be held up on that work until we sort out the front elevation. You would just need to apply for a separate permit for the front elevation.
Yes, I think that is going to be best because right now, I mean, we need to, if we can have those windows, at least the other windows at the front, I think that should work. I will need to talk to the company, Michael from Windows World, just to let them know, that they can work on the sites, and then I'm gonna be researching about the front windows. Yeah, I think that works
Okay.
better. Yep.
So then you'd like to withdraw your application?
Yeah, I think so. There is no another way. Vinyl works won't be approved. For the front, I rather to move on with that option so that they can at least fix those windows. Replace those windows, and then I'm gonna be doing my research to make sure that I comply with that, and hopefully I can get a grant. What will happen? I cannot get a grant for this, and then I don't have the money. Because that is
Right.
less money. So
Yeah.
what would happen?
So-
What would you recommend?
We would recommend withdrawing your application and allow it so that you could proceed with the work on the 3 elevations, and then you can also reach out to staff offline. They can give you the sources to look into funding, and then you can apply once you decide on your direction of materiality and manufacturer. You could come back separately for the front. So with your permission, we'll withdraw your submission at this time.
Okay. It's good.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Thank
Question?
you.
Sorry, one more question. I'm sorry.
Yes. Go ahead.
When will the permit to replace the side windows and all the other windows be available for?
Why don't you reach out to staff offline after the meeting, and they can give you more information on that.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, thank
All
you
right,
very much.
thank you.
Your Honor. Have a wonderful day.
Have a
Thank you.
great day.
You too. Thank you. Goodbye now. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
We'll move on to our next applicant located 3001 Prospect Avenue, Signature Health Orca signage. I'd like to welcome the applicant. Please unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project. I believe you're muted.
I'm sure it looks like she's not muted, but we don't have sound on her for some reason. Maybe her microphone is.
Right, we do not have sound on you. I don't know if you have the ability to call in on a telephone. Well, we'll give her a minute. And if not, we can maybe jump to the next one and come back. How about we'll move on to the next one and we'll come right back to you. Okay? Then we're gonna move beyond the, move to the window replacement located at 6614 West Clinton Avenue. I'd like to welcome that applicant. Please just announce yourself and tell us about your project.
Hey, everybody. My name is Kyle Skinner. I'm proposing that we're doing a window replacement at my property at 6614 West Clinton. Right now, we're talking about the downstairs unit. This is an upstairs, downstairs duplex. What we're trying to do is replace the 10 exterior windows on the downstairs unit of the property. We are proposing a new vinyl replacement window. The exterior is a black fiberglass laminate clad. It's on the outside of the windows. All the windows are going to stay the same size, the same basic style of the windows and everything like that. Only other things are the front door and the side window, which you can see here. They're both in pretty bad shape. We're going to refurbish both of those. So what we want to do is strip that down to the existing wood, refinish it, get new glass, make it look like a new old door. Same with that round window. And you can just see the existing conditions of the house. The exterior windows are horrific. They don't open. You can feel the breeze blowing in through them. So we're trying to get something a little better quality in there. And that's the windows that we're proposing. That's all I got.
Okay, thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on January 17th. They approved the project for replacement of the first floor windows with a recommendation to consider wood or alternate materials on the front elevation. There's 2 windows there. And then think to future renovations and style and framing of the windows. There's a lot of discussion on the work done on the home because there is work that has been done previously on the 2nd and 3rd floor. Future changes such as siding and how the trim and windows would interact with that. And so a lot of discussion on that, but overall they thought the windows would be recommended just with preferred higher materials on the front.
Excellent, thank you. Move on to landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff feels that while the owner has made some significant improvements to this property, between what was already done without review and approvals, the several windows that are being proposed today, and the work that will be required to complete this rehabilitation, we feel that it's most appropriate to table this item and have the applicant come back with the full scope of work for this project so that the commission can review all of the work instead of just a handful of windows on the first floor. That being said, I would like to point out that it appears that a couple of these windows, you can see them there on the front, on the first floor, are cottage style sash, and maintaining that configuration is very important to the overall architecture and design of the house. So yeah, you can see in this image there's been trim elements added, windows on the second floor have been altered. Not sure what the plan is for the porch, but we'd like to be able to look at this as a comprehensive project instead of just the replacement of 10 windows, since there is so much other work being done and has been done.
Okay, thank you for that recommendation. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Okay.
I have a question. Thank you, Madam Chair. Do the first floor windows, are they operable or are they stationary? Those 2 front elevation first floor windows, those large windows.
The 2 front windows are supposed to be operable, but just due to years of neglect, they are not anymore.
And you would be replacing them with an operable window?
I would be replacing them with an operable window.
Okay, thank you.
So I guess I do agree with staff on this one, that I would recommend tabling this and getting a better understanding from the owner of what work has already been done and materials, the windows that have already been replaced, on what those materials are, to assure that the front elevation and the sides, are consistent in materiality and color once the first floor is complete. Because it does appear that you replaced those the second and third floor windows already.
That's right.
So we would like to understand that better, and I don't think we can do it here at the meeting. I also do align with staff's recommendation that the 2 large front windows that are cottage style, which means it's 1/3 sort of 2/3 approach to the window versus a split down the middle for the operable panels, is important to maintain, and would recommend that moving forward.
Okay.
So,
and then
go ahead.
real quick, who do I talk to and how do I get in touch to kind of discuss this project moving forward?
If you give us your approval to table you, then you can reach out to staff offline and they can help you work through what the requirements would be to finalize this review.
Okay, and sorry for the stupid question. So I should just call you guys at the Landmark Division once you guys finish up this meeting and we can kind of go over everything.
Not a stupid question. That is the correct number or place you should call. Yes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. I appreciate it.
Okay, we're going to finish our process just to table your project. You're welcome to stay for that, just for the concluded or not. But I do have to ask if, since we do have permission from the owner to table, would someone like to make a motion to table?
I'll make a motion to table.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second, Madam Chair.
All right, thank you. We have 2 seconds. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Musson, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier.
Yes.
Mr.
Yep.
Lozier, I can hear you. Okay, thank you. Mr. Trasick
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes.
All right, thank you. And to the owner, Mr. Skinner, feel free to reach out to the Landmark staff and they can walk you through what their recommendations are.
Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
All right, thank you. We'll then move back to our third applicant, Signature Health Orca, located at 3001 Prospect Avenue.
Hi, I'm back on. I moved over to my coworker's desk. I'm so sorry. Something must be wrong with my my audio.
Not a
So
problem.
we'll
Please
figure
go
it out.
ahead.
Yeah, so I'm Laura Woima. I work for Brilliant Electric Sign Company, and I'm representing Signature Health. We were on design review meeting last week, and they asked us to change a few things, which I'll get into, but just the first slide there is the site plan that we have showing the B23758 is the wall sign. And the B23761 is the ground sign. You could do it to the next slide. It's just an overview to show where the same thing, a context map of showing the building and different parts of East 30th. Next slide. And then these are just street views of the building and different areas of where you can possibly see. Same thing, just different areas of different views that we like to take for you guys to see. Next slide. Same thing, just different views of 30th. So this is the ground sign. It's a double face, non-illuminated aluminum ground sign. When we were on the last meeting where they told us to go for a variance, because if we moved it back 3 feet, it wouldn't be great visibility for people to coming down 30th. Next slide. And this is the wall sign. It's a set of internally illuminated LED channel logo letters mounted on a raceway. And when we were on the meeting, the board asked us to move it up closest to the top. And why it is on that side, I know that some had asked us why it was on that side. That's so that it's visibility for, and if we moved it over to the other side, it wouldn't be the visibility for people to see it on the corner of the East 30th. Next slide. I don't think there's any more slides after that. Oh, these are just construction drawings. Next slide. Same thing, that's just construction drawings for the ground sign. That's all.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review committee recommendations.
Well, thank you, Madam Chair. This project went to the Historic Gateway and Warehouse District's Design Review Committee on January 17th and was approved with a couple conditions, which this modified proposal incorporates. They asked that the wall sign be centered on the topmost stone block. And there was also a correction to some of the measurements in the shop drawings. Both of those issues are reflected in the proposal we see today. The committee also recommended and expressed support for any needed variances which Carl will get into in a moment, but essentially the applicant would need to move the sign back 2 feet to meet setback code, and the committee encouraged them to keep the monument sign where they're proposing it in the presentation and to seek the setback variance.
Right, so 3 feet versus 5 feet.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Move on to landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Staff, we have up on our screen the variants that are required at this time. Signage is appropriate for the building being where it is. It's on the opposite side of the church, so it does not detract from the church at all. We would recommend that the monument sign be set back 1 more foot, because there is still some visibility for pedestrian traffic coming out of that driveway being up, and as it's 4 feet, almost 5 feet tall. Set, not the full to avoid it, but then just a little bit more breadth from the fencing and a little bit better visibility coming up. But then we would also recommend granting the variance required.
Okay, thank you. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Guess it's my day to start us off today. That I am in support of the committee and staff's recommendations for approval with the alignment for staff to make it 4 foot setback versus the 5 to meet, which would require 1 foot variance. So I am in support of the presentation with that modification and support of variance that would be required for the, associated with that monument sign. Other questions and comments from the commission? Other questions and comments from the commission? If not, could someone please put forward a motion? Mr. Lozier.
Sorry, I was just gonna say that I agree with staff's recommendations as well as yours, Madam Chair.
Excellent. Would you like to put forward a motion?
Sure. I would like to make a motion to approve as presented with staff recommendations.
Of the monument sign being set back 4 feet versus the 3 foot shown?
Correct.
And are you in support of the variance that would be required?
Yes.
Okay, so we have a motion with one requirement or condition. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We have a second. Any further discussion? Mr. Brunges.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for clarification that the motion to say that granting the variance, because that is under the landmark purview to grant variance to sign code.
Mr. Lozier, do you agree to modify that we will grant the variance required for the monument sign, ground mounted monument sign?
Yes.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes, so we'll grant.
All right, thank you, Mr. Brunges. I will get it right one of these days. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Mussin, please call roll.
And Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Councilmember Gray?
Just vote to themselves.
Abstain. Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Mr. Trasick?
Yes.
And Ms. Trout?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously. I guess with one abstention.
All right, excellent. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you. You just need it moved back 4 feet, not 3 as shown, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you so much. Everyone have a good day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
We'll then move on to our fifth applicant, back to the fifth applicant, the Dunham Tavern Green Infrastructure Project located at 6709 Euclid Avenue.
Hi, good morning, everybody. I'm Lauren Murray. I'm the director at Dunham Tavern Museum and Gardens. I'm just going to give a little context to kick us off, and then I'll turn it over to Chris Merritt and Tom Zarfis. First, I just want to note we're celebrating our bicentennial this year. So it's really exciting to be in this milestone moment and putting our vision in motion. This group actually approved our full master plan for the campus back in 2021. And so now we are beginning the implementation of that plan. And so it's a couple of the specific aspects of it that we're presenting to you today. We've also excitingly already begun some of the work on the campus with regards to taking down chain link fencing, clearing out a lot of invasive overgrowth and really opening up the property. And so that has been some really important site preparation that's leading the way to get to these next new improvements. So I'm going to turn it over first to our landscape architect, Chris Merritt.
Thank you, Lauren. Madam Chair, if appropriate, can I share my screen to walk through the presentation quickly?
Unfortunately, you cannot. The submitted presentation is controlled on this side.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. These
Just tell
first
us
few
what's
slides.
going to be advanced.
Okay, thanks. These first few slides just show you a little context of Dunham Tavern Museum and Gardens. So you see the blue outline here of the Dunham property between Euclid and Chester, 66th and 69th. We'll show more of this, but you can see the Cleveland Foundation headquarters, which just moved to this area on the southwest corner of the property. Next slide. As Lauren mentioned, we've been working with Dunham on a larger campus master plan that is in context to the Cleveland Foundation's move to Midtown and much more development happening around Midtown with Dunham as a kind of public open space at the heart of this. Next slide. This just shows a little context of some of that investment happening along East 66th Street and how Dunham connects to that. Next slide. As part of some of this larger planning, we've been working with many partners in the community on future development in the district. And part of this includes a new east-west greenway that would connect Dunham, the campus, to this future investment happening in Midtown and the Huff neighborhood. Next slide. You can see that illustration here. And what we're here to talk about and seek approval for is a first phase implementation of the Dunham master plan, which includes a heritage trail, which is the public path that loops around the campus, and a new driveway and parking court from East 66th Street. Next slide. This just shows the existing conditions and survey of the current Dunham campus. Next slide. And then we have a few photos, so you can see here a more current aerial of the campus with what Lauren mentioned, some of the kind of deferred maintenance, clearing of a fence that enclosed the property, and some kind of invasive overgrowth and the farm that used to be on the campus just to the north of the existing barn there. Next slide. Some existing photos from around the perimeter of the campus. Next slide. You can see the new Cleveland Foundation headquarters there where the Heritage Trail will connect that building with Dunham. Next slide. And then this is the existing parking area and driveway where we'll be putting a new parking court thanks to a sewer district green infrastructure grant that will connect to another sewer district project that the Cleveland Foundation implemented at East 66th Street. Next slide. Some other existing conditions and just thinking through that during the master planning process. Next slide. Next slide. This was the long-term master plan with future development on the campus for Dunham. You can see the east-west greenway that would connect across East 66th Street and future development. Next slide. And then this is what we're implementing now as part of a phase one. So in gray, looping around labeled A, you can see the proposed heritage trail that would connect the front of the museum, some of the existing gardens and future gardens, and then connect out to the perimeter of the campus. A new meadow to the north, a new plaza and patio that would connect Dunham and the community at the Cleveland Foundation headquarters, And then you can see the new alignment labeled D and E of the parking court with permeable pavers and the driveway that would connect out to East 66th Street. Next slide. This shows the full scope of that. There's also regrading of the property that will happen to align the driveway and trail and new meadow. Next slide. This is a rendering from Euclid with the Cleveland Foundation on the left, Dunham on the right. You can see that trail looping around with some new planting and the new plaza at the corner of the property there. Next slide. And then a rendering from Chester and E66, if you're just coming onto the property, looping into that heritage trail with the new meadow, the north facade of the Cleveland Foundation building, and the red existing barn in the distance. Next slide. Just to go through materials, the heritage trail will be a stone dust trail. We have sandstone pavers for the patio, permeable pavers for the parking court, and a chip seal asphalt driveway. Next slide. We'll also be reclaiming some existing stone materials that are on the property for seating. This is the character of all those materials together. Next slide. We're also planting new trees on the property. Unfortunately, the recent tornado dropped some trees on the property, so we're kind of replanting from that as well as in alignment with the new master plan. Next slide. And then the different planting will replace the lawn in the middle, new garden areas along the edges, and then the meadow to the north. Next slide. This is character of the different trees and planting, which will have 4-season interest. Next slide. And then this is the full illustrative plan. That's it.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll then move on to Design Review Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Blue Corridor Buckeye Design Review Advisory Committee on January 18th, and they recommended approval as presented.
Excellent, thank you. We'll move on to staff review comments.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Should the plan that is put before us is consistent with what had been previously approved with the master plan. Currently, our main concern is the material and treatment to the portion of the path in front of the tavern itself, and maintaining any historic sandstone with the matching of that. We would also like to see more detail on there's 2 points where the trail crosses driveways, and to see how pedestrian safety is addressed in those areas, and that the applicants be returning with site signage and lighting plans in the future. And although it is not in the scope right now, we are going to look forward to seeing because as mentioned with the tornado, did some damage to the tavern itself. We look forward to seeing the repair plan for that. Thank you.
Thank you. We will then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Would like to start us off? The proposal does feel consistent with what we previously approved related to the master plan. I do like the sensitivity and the more historical materials that are being used, like this recovered stone and the chip. It's chip and oil, I think is what you said it was the drive. I do think it's will add to the character of the site and align with the building itself. The reclaimed stone benches, the chip and seal asphalt, and the stone dust trail. I'd ask one clarification from staff related to sandstone on the site. Where was the sandstone previously?
There's sandstone immediately, someplace immediately in front, but we're not sure because they showed it like the steps.
Yeah, Madam Chair, it appears that there's like a front stoop and then some sandstone directly in front of that. You can see in the lower right-hand picture here. It just extends out maybe 8 feet from the door. Not sure about how old that sandstone is, or if it's something they added, in the fairly recent past, but we just want to make sure that if it is historic, it's maintained.
I see. Would the applicant, Mr. Merritt, would you like to respond to that about the sandstone?
Happy to, thank you. In that bottom right photo, you can actually see a couple red flags, and that was from an initial kind of field test of the alignment of the path. So the path will kind of run right up against the edge of that sandstone patio to preserve that stone. And then we're actually using a sandstone cobble to address your prior question at those crossings around the driveway. As a strip, a kind of tactile strip to promote that safety and crossing and be consistent with materials. And you can see some of that detail in the drawings that were submitted as part of the application.
Thank you for that clarification. We did have someone from Midtown here, Ms. Zhang.
Yes. Hi, everybody. My name is Kara Singh. I'm from Midtown. To the chair, to the commission, just wanted to express support for this plan. I think it really beautifully moves the master plan for Dunham Tavern forward, and it really opens up the historical significance to the community, and just love how it's going to, I believe, link neighbors to see the historical significance of the museum and of the grounds. So really thrilled to see this move forward. I will also note that I believe that it integrates a number of priorities in the neighborhood master plan as well, including opening up more community gathering space, honoring these historic places, and connecting a number of both institutions and other stakeholders to each other along this corridor. So just wanted to add that to the conversation. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you. We'll then go back to the commission for questions and comments.
Madam Chair, I have a comment.
Yes.
Thank you. Just want to echo the young lady just spoke about enhancing that area, because I spent some time at the Dunham Tavern a couple years ago. They gave a community outing. It was fantastic. It was overwhelming. They gave a tour. It's absolutely beautiful over there. The inside of the tavern itself is miraculous. Not knowing the history and how it engaged with the community, and for them to understand what that Dunham Tavern is all about and what it represents in that community as a whole. And then the outside is absolutely beautiful too. What I seen at that time, but just to see what they're doing right now to enhance it and to improve it, it will bring more awareness to the residents of that community, to come and visit more often, to understand what the history of that tavern means and what they're doing. So I definitely support this project.
Thank you, Councilman.
You're welcome.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Oh, Mr. Lozier, sorry, I missed your hand.
No worries. I just raised it. Thank you. I just want to applaud and thank the applicant and Dunham Tavern for making this investment, and whoever the other community partners are making this investment. I think this is a really wonderful respite in this area of the city that is only being enhanced by the upgrades that are occurring as part of this first phase, and then hopefully subsequent phases. I appreciate the completeness and clarity of this presentation as well. I think the renderings and the plantings and the views, I think, are really going to create a very welcoming and wonderful asset for this area of the city. And I also appreciate how it's also responding to and embracing the new buildings on sort of the adjacent parcel, the Clune Foundation and the tech the tech building.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Well stated. Other questions and comments from the commission, or someone like to put forward a motion? Hearing fairly unanimous support. Someone like to put forward a motion? Miss Anderson.
Move to approve as presented.
Do you agree with the conditions that staff had stated, the conditions of returning for signage and
Yes, return
lighting?
for signage and incorporation of the sandstone.
And then detailing how the path crosses the drives?
Yes.
All right, so we have a motion with some conditions. Do we have a second?
A second.
Thank you, Councilwoman Gray. Any further discussion? Mr. Messon, please follow.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trout.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. That concludes our certificates of appropriateness. We'll now move on to our concept plan review. This will be a review only. We will not be voting. We'll move on. The first applicant is located at 4602 Clinton Avenue, townhome construction.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks very much for your time. Presenting this morning for proposed 2 new homes at 4602 Clinton Avenue, situated behind and adjacent to some existing homes and townhomes off of Wheat Court between Clinton Avenue and Detroit Avenue. The homes are situated or nestled amongst the homes that are kind of immediately surrounding it on the south, east, and west, and to some existing industrial buildings immediately to the north of the proposed homes. So this, as we're looking through this, we'll be able to look at some massing, some context here as the homes relate to the surrounding buildings that are existing right here. So if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, please. The homes as they are situated. In the previous slide, we saw the kind of generalized, zoomed out site plan right here. So we have just here showing the setbacks of the home. Generally, in this image, the homes are accessed off of Wheat Court. For reference, there is a large blank masonry wall immediately to the north of these homes. They're accessed. The garages would be immediately off of the court, which we'll look at some of those images later. Pedestrian access, which was very important to the block club in the neighborhood. The homes themselves acknowledge Clinton Avenue. So as you're walking down Clinton Avenue, there is a large gap, and we'll see an image as well later on that'll show this. But there's a large gap between 2 existing homes there, which the block club of the neighborhood were very eager to support a home that was acknowledging the facade or the frontage along Clinton Avenue. Wouldn't mind advancing to the. I think that the imagery, the 3D renderings might kind of tell the best story right here. If you wouldn't mind advancing another couple slides here, past the floor plans and the elevations. We can always go back to those, but the going one more, please, or maybe 2 more, I think. Yep, got the sections in there too. If you wouldn't mind advancing another one. There we go. So, so these images best depict the homes as they're situating with the massing surrounding them as well. So as we're looking at the top image, we have existing homes surrounding it. This is as if you are walking along Clinton Avenue, looking northwest. You can also see the large masonry building that is immediately to the north of the homes. So we're bringing in a good amount of light from the south facade and acknowledging that relationship to Clinton Avenue. The main tenant entryways to the homes face Clinton Avenue. There are walkways that flank the homes on either side with lighting that is interspersed along the side to maintain some visibility and safety as well. And just some, from a material standpoint, we're proposing hardy plank throughout. So hardy plank white siding here is what you're seeing from these principal facades. So using hardy plank along the front We've got a tongue and groove cedar accent off the front entryways. You'll see the lighting along those areas as well. We have some plantings that are separating these properties from the adjacent property immediately to the south. And if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, please. Along the rear of the properties, we have the same tongue and groove cedar as well as hardy plank that is wrapping the facades here. You see some lighting interspersed. There was some discussion in the Ohio City Design Review meetings just about the pedestrian and vehicular entry as well as the rear facade in general. We've added some overhangs, some additional materiality there with introducing the tongue and groove cedar over top of the pedestrian and vehicular access off of the alleyway. As noted previously, the main pedestrian access to the homes is fronting Clinton, but there is a man door and pedestrian access off of the alleyway as well. There is lighting that is, there's a generous amount of lighting as well off of the alleyway to further increase the amount of potential visibility and safety that's that was brought up as well in with the Ohio City Design Review. And if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide as well, please. So this image here shows the general massing surrounding the home. As I spoke about previously, the homes are designed in such a way to peek through from Clinton Avenue and also from a fenestration standpoint, get above the adjacent industrial structures that are immediately to the north of the homes to be able to get views over Detroit Avenue, and you do have some peaks of the lake as well. And then if you wouldn't mind advancing to the next slide, please. Showing again the massing amongst the surrounding buildings and just how we're kind of getting up above the surrounding the adjacent structures. And the last slide, I believe, is just showing some materiality as I was speaking to with the renderings and massing. So that is everything that I have from the design side, and would love any feedback that you might have.
Thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to Design Review Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project went before the Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee for concept level review on December 21st, 2023. As Mr. Rohal said, they were generally supportive and offered positive feedback about the design direction. There were some questions about the visibility and sightlines from Clinton. Also the discussion of allowing the existing home to have access to the alley, as Mr. Rohal mentioned, with that, sidewalk access to the weed court. They asked the applicant to explore details and treatments that may pull from the surrounding neighborhood to kind of balance that modern versus contextual designs. But as stated, they were generally supportive, and Mr. Rohal seems to have taken their comments into consideration.
All right, thank you. I'll move on to Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is new additions into the rear of a lot that previously or historically did have homes on it. From this map, you can see there's 4602 and 4606, which were 1.5 story homes on the rear of this property. So historically, there have been a variety of construction being done on this property and homes of varying sizes in that location, 2 story to 1.5 story. We are supportive of the concept of having these homes there. The massing for it, I think could be adjusted a little bit. One of the gables is slightly taller than the other, and possibly having them at the same height would be nice. Where you can see the home in the rear directly next to it is about a 2.5 story building, and then there's the currently backyard of the home on Clinton, and then you have 3.5 to 4 story townhomes a lot over. And so pulling more from that context of I feel like the gable is slightly overly large on one of the units that they're proposing. So having that still pull from the neighborhood and have designs pull from the neighborhood, but maybe adjust the height a little bit. We look forward to seeing it progress and having clear site plan with measurements showing the distance from the adjacent houses, from the street, the alley, as well as a height study, streetscape study showing those sight lines for the building and the large industrial building directly behind it. But overall, we look forward to seeing it develop.
Excellent, thank you. We'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments then. Mr. Lozier.
Thanks, Madam Chair. So I want to thank the applicant for the pretty concise presentation this morning. I'm in support of the massing as shown. I actually don't mind the fact that the one unit is taller than the other. I think it makes it feel have a little bit more variety in massing than having it be exactly the same. I think it also harkens to sort of the two separate buildings that were on the site historically. Makes them feel a little bit more separate than one massive unit, let's say. So that said, I think the only I think consideration or a couple considerations as this moves forward would be to provide some additional renderings or views from Clinton with the existing home as context, just so we have a better understanding of what it actually feels like in space. I think that the views that we're seeing right now are helpful to understand, the massing in and of themselves, but getting a little bit more of that context in it, I think would be helpful. I would also just maybe recommend looking at an alternative material to the cedar, just as another, idea or option. I think that if done well and maintained well, I think that it's a viable material, but it's not always the case. So just thinking about long-term maintenance and durability and look of that material as it continues to age and weather. But I'm in support of what's been developed so far. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Other questions and comments from the commission? Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I too am fine with the various heights on the structure of those two gables. That's fine for me. I'm not real comfortable with the white. I know at one time white was really frowned upon in the historic districts, and I still sort of feel that way. I think it's it'd be nicer if we had a warmer color and no gray. I really see double hung windows to be preferable for a variety of reasons. For one thing, that's what we see in the historic district is the double hungs. And from talking to people who have these single pane windows, they open outward, and especially on a southern exposure, you cannot have them at all open in the rain because water gets in. I think that's probably part of the genius of the double hung windows. You can, have your windows cracked and get some air while it's raining, but we get plenty of rain in Cleveland, and those casements tend to allow the water in the structure. Overall, I find the elevation to be too flat, too minimalist. In this area, we have, I think, one of the charms of the historic district is all the articulation that we see in our buildings, and I see none of that here to speak of. So I would like to see a little more articulation. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. I too am in support of the two being separate structures and the height differential, but I do feel the overall massing might be too tall. Yeah, I don't mind having two different heights, but I think, it just feels a little too tall for the taller unit, so I encourage you to explore how to bring it back, but I appreciate you bringing in the vernacular of the neighborhood and the proportionality of the windows, casement or double, versus double hung. It doesn't bother me that they're casement, but I do, appreciate that feedback. So I think it's great feedback for everybody to understand the reality of, some of the design moves that more modern architecture, the resultant effects of those. I would like to see the site plan, and just how, as staff had noted, with some dimensions, because I'm sorry, I'm a little fuzzy of how far this building sits back from, Newport and how that far back it is from Clinton to truly understand that. I'm sorry if you, maybe I missed when you stated that, but I couldn't see it on the drawing. So I think that would be helpful too, to understand, its impact and a little bit better explanation of or could you give a little bit better explanation of the rear material again? Would you mind going back to that, Carl, one additional slide forward, I believe, right there. Could you explain that a little bit more? It looks like you mentioned there's garage doors and man doors on the lower level. And then what's the brown material wrapping it again?
Currently, that's proposed as the tongue and groove cedar, but I think that per Mr. Lozer's comments, will likely move towards a composite material that is going to give some warmth and is a little bit better from a durability standpoint.
And then what are the two colors adjacent to that are yellow and white?
So the yellowish color, that's the tongue and groove, currently proposed tongue and groove cedar, and then the white is just the white hardy plank.
Okay, in going through that a little bit more detail would be helpful. So that whole wall is solid. There's no windows besides the third floor.
That's correct, and that's a product of there's a dark brown large industrial building immediately adjacent with zero articulation whatsoever on it, and so with the design of the northern facade, you start to have windows as they barely peak above the roof line of that existing building. And then you have the occupiable roof deck on the upper level to be able to get over the height of that building right there.
I would encourage you to look at adding windows here. Although the view may not be great, the daylight would be nice within the spaces. I think sometimes you forget how many people actually put up curtains and shades that not always the view, it's often the daylight and allowing that into the interior of the structure. So I'd encourage you to explore adding windows here as you rethink the materiality.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think it's a really interesting project in the whole concept for the staff comments of these back houses. And I too like the variety and the height. I just wonder if I would like to suggest exploring maybe some of that variety of the two distinct houses based on height, not be just limited maybe to those upper parts, but to really let it filter down and a little bit more differentiation. It's almost like the first two floors are pretty much the same, and then you vary the top. But I think that's actually a way to reflect the historic nature. If they were two separate houses, they wouldn't have necessarily been the same height. So I think that's really charming. But the modern vernacular, I think, can be appropriate, especially because it will be kind of glimpsed, I guess. The window comments are taken to heart from Ms. Anderson. So yeah, I agree with a lot of my fellow commission members' comments, but I'd like to see some more exploration for that variety in the spirit of honoring the kind of historic quality of this whole enterprise of two back houses. But I think it can track through a little more and still be in a modern expression. And the color, I think the white does really make it pop. So I guess it's a question of whether that's good from a neighborhood urban design perspective, or whether it might want to recede a little more in terms of a gentler color scheme. Thanks. But thank you. Good presentation.
Any further questions or comments from the committee? Mr. Brundges?
Madam Chair, I apologize. Something that just noticed while I was looking at this thing. On the other drawings, we show downspouts on the outside ends. How will the drainage from roof in the front in between the two units be addressed? Because it looks like the way it's pitched and the way it's coming down, it's going to come down right on that front door, on the interior.
Yeah, so right now, the anything that is shown as it's appearing to be flat is all sloping to the towards the north side. The gutters are shown and downspouts shown towards the north side of the home, and so you'll see them kind of peeking through right there. But there would be a slight gutter line. If it's not shown currently right there, everything will slope towards the north side of the home, and along the south side, I saw someone's cursor along that south side right there. That is basically just the fascia kind of peaking. There's only maybe like an 18-inch or 12-inch portion of that fascia that kind of peaks in front of the stairs at the southern portion right there. So right there, it's essentially going to drain down on the in that same plane as the overhang. So we could tuck a gutter if necessary on the south facade, kind of in that juncture point between the two masses. But on the north side, everything is draining along that kind of pitched roof to the north side.
Right. Yeah, just look at how that little, where the little step of the two buildings and that little piece of roof is coming down. I think is where Mr. Bruggs is focusing, so that you take care of the water versus having it go on the floor.
Understood.
Madam President, yes, I just have a question. I'm not familiar with this particular historical neighborhood. But just listening to the other comments from my colleagues here, the townhouse structure that you have in that community, does this townhouse fit in what the other houses look like, and or we know that the modernization of the homes, will be changing in the historical districts per se, and I understand that you have to use certain materials of the change, to be approved. However, would this particular structure, flow with the other homes in that neighborhood on that street per se?
In my opinion, yes. In terms of the mass of the building, in terms of the roof lines that we have used. You can see that, yeah, this is actually a perfect image to articulate that. The homes that are along the kind of upper left-hand side of this image show a very similar design type, where you have a gable in the front and a roof on the rear of the structure right there. We also embrace that same form. The height of the buildings are very similar. I do like the comment about the color of the potentially warming up the color palette as well, because the white perhaps is it really does make the structure pop. I think in terms of the form of the building and the scale of the building, it is very contextual. There are some surrounding structures that are much or some surrounding homes that are actually much larger in terms of square footage than this. But I do think with a little bit of tweaking from the color and materiality side, that it will really resonate with the buildings surrounding it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Not seeing any additional feedback from the commission. Does the applicant feel like we received enough feedback from the commission to continue with the development of your design?
Yes, absolutely. And I really appreciate all the feedback that everybody has given.
All right, thank you. We look forward to seeing you come back with your final design.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll then move on to our next applicant, located 1898 West 25th Street, shell improvements of the, how do you say that, that's building?
Gets.
Madam Chair, I'm going to need to recuse myself.
All right, thank you, Ms. Anderson. We'd like to welcome the applicant. Please unmute your mic, announce yourself, and tell us about your project.
Good morning, everybody. This is Kevin Oliver with Oliver Architecture, presenting for 1898 West 25th Street. It's the shell improvements to the existing building located there for a new restaurant, Chipotle, on the front here. The location plan on the right here highlights our project site in red. It's on West 25th with Pins Mechanical to the north and Third Federal to the south. Go to the next page, please. Again, just showing some context of it. The building itself is only 20 feet wide, so it's a narrow existing building between the others. Next, please. Top row of images shows the context on West 25th Street looking to the west. The bottom row shows the rear side of the block. And you can see on the right top image is the current condition of the West 25th facade of the building. On the far left is a previous condition showing how in recent it has changed. And in the rear on the bottom right is the current condition of the rear facade of the building. Next, please. So the site plan here shows West 25th to the right, the rear parking existing area to the left. The building itself has a taller 3-story portion towards West 25th and a lower 2-story portion towards the rear. Mechanical units, exhaust fans, et cetera, that are going in are proposed for the lower roof portion, not visible from West 25th Street. That third floor height of the building will conceal that. Next slide, please. And so on the West 25th side, the proposed alterations to the facade are to install the new storefront at the ground level, transom level, and then repair the trim work and repaint that exists on the rest of the facade. The second story fixed storefront windows would be replaced with new, and then keeping all of the applied detail that is on those. There's currently some spindles, some paneling below those. So those would be retained, repaired, repainted. And then moving up to the third floor, repairing the existing hung windows there, repainting them, and then installing a new storefront where there's sort of a compressed storefront opening currently, enlarging that, and then replacing and repairing paneling around it, painted to match the rest of the facade. Next slide, please. At the rear of the building, again, the photo showed it. It's not in great shape right now, but tuck pointing, repairing, and then replacing openings with new. From our local design review, we talked about the existing sort of fixed gridded lights that are on the back there, where this image shows it infilled with 3 double hung windows. We will propose that is replaced with a in-kind storefront window and not adding more masonry to that, keeping that opening intact. But on the right, you can sort of see where the rooftop units will sit. They're shaded in gray there, and the lower roof slopes slightly up to the 3-story portion, which you can see beyond there as well. Toothing in, there's some existing CMU infill openings. We'd remove that and tooth in new brick to match the existing. Next slide, please. Material-wise, we have a charcoal storefront system throughout the front facade. Trim and other materials that, fiber cement that are added and repaired will be painted to match that. The transom area, we're proposing a painted metal grid behind that to recall at one point there was prism glass there, and that would allow us to give a sense of that prism glass in our new alterations here. Wide style storefront doors, and then rehabilitating the brick and stonework on the front to clean it, tuck point as necessary, bring the building back up to standard for today. Next slide, please. Just for context, kind of the floor planning and use of the building, the first floor would be the kitchen and ordering area. Part of the project is to install new stairs at the front and rear of the building and an elevator. So on the second floor, which is on the top of this image, is where the seating area would be. And you can start seeing how the front stairway has an opening between the first floor and second floor. And then if you go to the next slide, sorry, one more. This is roof plan and basement, just for reference. But in this view, West 25th is on the left, but the front smaller third floor portion would be removed with the framing left intact so that that second floor has a double height space. And then at the front facade, it actually is open all the way to the roof framing. And so that entire facade would have activation and lighting behind it, given the volume of that space up front there. This view also shows on the right, on the top of the roof there, proposed mechanical units and fans tucked behind that 3-story portion up front. Next slide, please. Again, kind of reiterating in a diagram how that front hall section would read with the framing left intact there. Next slide. These are some schematic interior views looking from the one on the right, looks from the second floor dining area out through the front facade facing West 25th. And the image on the left is at the top of the stairs as you enter that second floor area looking away from West 25th into the interior of the building. You can see the exposed framing there. Next slide. And again, conceptual views. Left one is on the first floor looking back towards the front West 25th facade of the building. You can see the new stair wrapping up and it's opening. And then on the right, looking back towards the interior from the entry doors off of West 25th. And next slide, and I believe that is the conclusion. Again, happy for questions. Thank you for everybody's time.
All right, thank you. We'll then, for the presentation, we'll then move on to design review committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed conceptually by the Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee on January 18th. There was a lot of discussion about the West 25th facade, about the prism glass that was removed from the transom windows, replacing upper floor windows with commercial systems. There were concerns about that, as well as the mesh being installed behind clear transom glass and its visibility. There was discussion about the glass divisions for the transom and storefront windows, as well as noted, that window configuration in the rear. And also a discussion on the, there's an exterior signage that says blouses and dresses painted on the second floor that the committee would request to have that retained if possible.
All right, we'll move on to landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Some of you have been on the commission long enough to recall that another rehabilitation of this building was proposed and came before us in 2017. At that point, the owner had removed the prism glass transom windows without permission, review, or permits, and was planning on reinstalling them as part of the rehab. I believe the owner was even working with our city's storefront renovation program. While that rehabilitation plan fell through, I'd like to bring the motion, which is up on the screen now and was passed by the commission, to the attention of all of you. The motion specified not only that the prism glass windows, which are currently being stored at Whitney Stained Glass, be restored and reinstalled within 5 years, but it also required the owner to come back in 2 years from the date of the meeting to present a report to the commission about, the status of the windows and the work that had been done on the building and future plans for it. Well, the commission did ultimately retroactively approve the temporary removal of the prism glass windows, with the caveat that they be reinstalled within 5 years of July 2017. Staff has concerns about the fact that we never received the 2-year report and the windows still have not been reinstalled. And most importantly, the current plan does not include reinstalling them. Aside from the owner removing these prism glass windows without a permit and before he received approval from the Landmarks Commission, I find it concerning that the same owner removed prism glass windows from his building across the street, the Metzner building, several years ago. I guess before these, they were removed on this building in question here, again, without review or permits. So essentially in the last 10 years, we've gone from having 3 examples of prism glass windows on transoms on West 25th Street down to 1, which is in the Brower building just south of Lorraine. These windows, for those not familiar, they were very popular in the late 1800s as they brought a new way to bring light into formerly kind of dark, deep storefront spaces. The prism glass design is more than decorative. It reflects sunlight and pushes it into the back of the space while diffusing and spreading it throughout the space. I actually brought several samples if, I don't know, people aren't familiar. Typically they're kind of purplish in color. They have patterns on the front. This one is actually a pattern designed by Frank Lloyd Wright. And then the rear has sort of a sawtooth pattern, and that's how the light diffuses and is pushed back into the rear of the commercial space typically. The windows on this building in particular were exceptionally special because they were made by a Cleveland company, Cleveland Solar Prism Company. And I'm not aware of any other examples of those windows being produced in Cleveland and still being extant. Aside from staff's strong opinion that the prism glass must be restored and reinstalled, we also feel that the proposed storefront display window divisions are not appropriate. The second transom is not really necessary. It's completely appropriate to have a transom over a door and not necessarily have that transom extend across the entire window. So we'd like to see that upper transom where the, I guess commonly referred to as Luxford glass, but that's just a brand name like Kleenex, where the prism glass had been installed. We'd like to see that restored, but then we don't see the need for a second transom to be added below that. We feel that the display windows could be divided into 2 or maybe 3, but 4 leaves us with much too narrow panes of glass. We also noticed in the drawings presented, there's the RAM name appears just above the storefront. I don't believe that's a historic name. I think that was just left over from RAM Electronics that was there for many years. But I think those are just little wooden kind of stick-on painted signage. So if we can confirm that that's the case, those should probably be removed. I just noticed that they showed up in the drawing, so wanted to bring that up. Our other big issue is the treatment of the 3rd floor windows. Tim Barrett from the Storefront Renovation Program produced a couple different options of how this could be handled, which are on the screen now. We're not saying it has to be one of these options, but with the historic images of the building we have, there is strong enough evidence to develop an appropriate replacement for the Oriole Bay that once looked out over West 25th Street. In these options on the screen, well, I guess you can see the historic image there, and then sort of a recreated version of that without the partially domed structure. And then the second option to the far right shows kind of a balcony created with a awning canopy mimicking that sort of domed portion that's no longer there. We're very pleased to see some attention paid to this building and that it may finally be rehabbed after years of sitting by and watching the neighborhood improve around it. However, the historic character of this property is not being preserved as presented, as they propose to remove distinctive materials and significantly alter features and spaces that characterize this building, which is in direct nonconformance with the Secretary of the Interior standards, specifically Standard 2. This building is an architectural treasure and needs to be respected as such. There are solutions to the prism glass issue, just as there are solutions to the 3rd floor window question. Staff just asked that the commission hold the applicant to the standards you are all tasked with upholding in Chapter 161 of the city's codified ordinances and the Secretary of the Interior standards for rehabilitation. We are just looking at this as a concept today with no vote, but your comments will help the applicants finalize their plan before they return for final review. I would ask that the commission be very clear on their stance on the issues raised so that the applicant can make changes to their plan that bring the project into compliance with the standards.
And please keep in mind that once these historic features are gone, they're gone forever. And up on the screen, you can see the prism glass, which was removed back in 2017, or maybe it was removed in 2016, then came before the commission in 2017, but yeah.
All right, that's a lot to unpack. So let's start with each item, or I should say, any questions or comments from the commission start off, or shall we start running through some of the things that staff mentioned? Okay, I will start then. Related to the prism glass, does I'm sorry, Mr. Oliver, do you know if the prism glass was it retained and still in good shape?
I don't know as of right now. I know the property owner was reaching out to determine the status of that, but right now I don't know.
The glass was removed under the direction of Mr. Barrett. He's the one that contacted, Whitney Glass Studios and had them remove that. That was not something that I authorized or anything.
I'm sorry, could you state your name, sir?
I'm sorry, I'm Doug Perkowski.
The building owner?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Just, I apologize, Madam Chair. I'm just curious what, I mean, Tim Barrett, that you referenced, he works for the city storefront renovation program. And why did he, I guess, how did he direct Whitney Stained Glass to remove it? And I mean, he wouldn't be their client. He wouldn't have been paying them. I'm just curious how that went down.
I didn't pay them either. Tim contacted them. Tim is adamant that this glass needs to be saved. Tim also had us save the glass at the Metzner building, got a contractor, did everything for that. That was part of the storefront program. That glass failed about 20 years after it was installed. That's why it was removed. I don't have any confidence that if we put this glass back in, that it wouldn't fail again shortly thereafter. We also have had a lot of windows in this area broken by, bullet holes, by everything. So it isn't going to end well with this glass going back in. The other problem is there's a lot of sunlight, and then you're going to have a lot of sun beating in, heating up the space. Everybody on 25th is putting sunshades on the inside, which is also going to overheat this glass.
Okay. Well, I think, I'll say my personal opinion, because I was part of the commission when this was previously reviewed, is that the prism glass is one of the most predominant and treasured features of this building. I was never here for the third floor, addition in Cleveland. I've only been here for 30 years. I was never there, so I don't have any comments on that, but the prism glass I do. And I do feel, as was stated 5 years ago, that that's an important feature of the building and should be replaced. And usually it's the leading, if it was a leaded glass installation that fails, it's not the glass that fails. So that with more modern installations using the correct leading will help it not fail again. Related to the front elevation glass divisions, I would align with staff's comments that I do not support the division of 4 windows in that area. And or the transom, I think less is more, and having that broken down into 2 larger panes that could extend all the way up to the header between the prism glass and the storefront would be appropriate, and align it, so that you maintain those verticals through the elevation there. I would also say that with the bulkhead, below should also reflect that. Related to the RAM signage, I do like your overall color composition and your what you're proposing here to be really freshen up this building and bring new life to it, because it is such a little jewel in the rough here. So I do want to. I haven't stated that yet. I think this is a great restoration and renovation proposal for this building. But I would, if the RAM signage is still there and it's not historic, I would also encourage you to remove that. Along with, if there is a painted sign on the rear, to maintain that in your restoration. Related to the third floor addition that was discussed previously 5 years ago. Once again, I don't have an opinion on that. The roof addition. Those are some of my comments.
Just to be clear, Madam Chair, I apologize for interrupting. Yes. When I refer to the third floor, I'm talking about the, I guess not the kind of gable addition on the top. I mean the
windows.
Oriole, yeah, the Oriole bay that used to extend out in front. It's been gone for quite a number of years, but having something that staff feels that having something that more sympathetically reflects that would be more appropriate than just sort of making it flat like a storefront system up there.
Got it. So that is truly the third floor windows, not the roof addition.
Yeah, no, we're not. We're not.
All right, good. Discussion 5 years ago that I don't.
Yeah, it was.
I would encourage you to explore that. I think you're so close to having that flat elevation. It appears to be similar to what was originally installed, and with that little just addition, it could really make it shine on that third floor and bring back the integrity of that third floor window. I think you're close. It just needs a little bit more detailing that would allow it to be that. Overall, though, I am in support of the project, and but do feel very strongly about specifically the prism glass and or some of those modifications to the storefront as you move forward. So those are my comments. Other questions and comments from the commission? Other questions and comments from the commission? Did you put your hand up, or is that? Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to support a lot of the comments, that I want to commend and thank the staff for the thoroughness of that review, this very concise historic overview, and the passion with which they view a constructive process to getting this building rehabilitated. I would just say I would be in support of the project as well, but I think these details and the spirit that this whole project has been through over the years had a lot of merit, and really encouraged the owner and design team to work closely with the staff to get to the best resolution we can for this, because this is a really important building. It is a gem, and I'm just glad to see that it is going to be reused and hopefully rehabilitated to the standards that we expect here at the commission. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jewell. Other questions and comments from the commission? Other questions and comments from the commission? All right, not seeing any. Does the applicant feel like we received enough feedback to continue the development of your project?
Yes, thank you. As you stated, we'll be in touch with staff and take the comments and continue with our process here.
All right, thank you. Like we said, we like the developer, we like the proposal. It's just the front elevation needs to continue to be developed.
Thank you.
That concludes our concept plan reviews. We will then move on to meeting minutes.
Second page.
Oh, sorry. I had jumped that one off thinking it was the other ones. I apologize. We have one more applicant located at 2168 West 25th Street rehabilitation.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Joe Delray. I'm with MRN. I'm joined today by Dan Sirk from SA Group and Larry DeVita from SA Group. Thank you, committee members and staff, for the opportunity to present this project. The Carriage Company is the planned adaptive reuse of the Voss Aerospace manufacturing facility at 2168 West 25th Street. This project is something that we've been intensely focused on over the past, 2 years, more than 2 years since we acquired the property during the pandemic. For those familiar, if you would be so kind as to go to the next slide. For those who are not familiar with the project, it is located at the intersection of Chatham and West 25th Street in the Ohio City neighborhood. It's directly south of a property that MRN has been redeveloping for the past 12 years, really, the United Bank building and associated properties there. When the opportunity to invest in the Voss factory came up, it really made a lot of sense for us because it's just a natural extension of the work that we had been doing in Ohio City for the past almost 15 years. If you go to the next slide, it'll show a little bit greater context for what we're talking about, showing both its proximity to the West Side Market as well as to the United Bank Tower and the retail that we own and have been developing. If you go to the next slide. So this is the West 25th Street facade, and I think it does a nice job of kind of talking a little bit about the complex in general. The facility is comprised of 18 buildings. It looks like it's one factory, but it's actually 18 buildings built between 1870 and the early 2000s. Our concept for this project is primarily a residentially driven redevelopment of the factory. But a key aspect of it is to break up the buildings back into some of the component parts by daylighting the vacated alleys of Hancock Place and West 25th Street Place. That would, in essence, create some segmented buildings that we'll get into in a little bit here, but also providing these interesting pedestrian walkthroughs that really create this into like an urban village and connects it back to the other projects that have gone up in and around it over the past several years. To open up some of the space and air, will also undertake some very minimal demolition of, again, those alley covering areas, which we'll see at other elevations. If you can move on to the next slide. This shows, I think, is going to be one of the central themes of the whole project. One of the ideas that got us very excited when we looked at the project was this parking lot, which right now is unassuming and rather boring, but when we take a closer look at it, you see some critical things. One is we already own the Citizens Pie building to the north of the lot. The idea of wrapping this parking lot with engaged retail or food and beverage uses and creating this almost as like a central park or central green for the overall project is really what got our thinking kind of going there. Also, by activating that drive to the back of this picture there as a pedestrian alley, really could bring some of the energy from the new residents living above out into this open public space, as well as hopefully attracting neighbors, residents, and visitors. If you go to the next slide, this is showing the existing condition from Chatham. The reason I wanted to include this picture is particularly because you can see the West 25th Street at place that terminates right now with that yellow garage door. And again, our hope is to demo out that garage door, remove that roof, and daylight that alley up to where you see those windows in the back there. If you'd be so kind as go to the next slide. This is showing the facade, the west facade from West 26th Street. If you go to the next slide. This shows again the West 25th Street facade. If you notice, about halfway through that picture, there is a garage door with 2 windows over it, right in the middle. That is a building that was built over Hancock. And what we'd like to do is, again, demo out that garage door in the middle, opening up that alleyway. And that's going to be the primary entrance into the project from West 26th Street for our residents. To the left of that will become our leasing office and main entrance, and to the right of it, a fitness center. If you go to the next site. This shows the facade from Monroe. And then continuing on to the next slide. Again, this shows an entryway into this is looking north, the north facade from Monroe. This shows actually, again, the buildings built out over the alleys. One more slide. This is actually one of my favorite vistas because this is looking at it across 25th Street from the entranceway to the Red Line Greenway. And one of the other key elements that we think makes this project so interesting and important is its connection to multimodal transit, particularly the Red Line Greenway. We envision a lot of our residents taking advantage of not only the connections to the RTA as well as to access on 25th Street, but really just taking their bike across the street and hopping on the Greenway to either get to Edgewater or onto the trails and the network of the towpath beyond. One more slide. Okay, we're looking down at the covering of the alleyways, and this shows again what we're hoping to have removed. The project in general is connected by a series of these elevated platforms that have been built out over the last 100 or so years. We would keep some of the bridges intact to connect the buildings, but what you're looking at below is what we'd hope to open up. And then in the next picture, this is what lies beneath. So you're now in the alley looking down the street. What we envision here is a lot of these windows being replaced and reactivated and daylighting the roof above. The puddle will also be gone, we hope. Next slide. Again, now you're looking at Hancock. I believe this is the view from West 25th Street. So my back is to 25th Street, looking straight down towards the west. Yes, I'm sorry, towards the south. One of the things that we worked really hard to do was to get both state and federal historic tax credit eligibility. And we did that by really digging deep into the historic nature of the building, working closely with both Park Service and SHPO to mash our redevelopment plans with the historic nature of the building. Larry, if you'd be so kind as to kind of walk through the next few slides, just kind of talking about the building's past use and how we let it influence our designs.
Good morning, this is Larry DeVita from SA Group.
I'm sorry, we can't really hear you well. Could you get a little closer to your mic?
Sure, can you hear me now?
We can hear you better, thank you.
Good morning, this is Larry DeVita from SA Group. So the building, as Joe was saying, is 18 buildings and or major additions from 1889 through, I think, 2013. And so what we're looking at is sort of the history of industrial architecture over the 20th century. Roush and Lang was originally a carriage company. Roush moved from Columbus Road, where he had a carriage shop, and started sort of building carriages here. And as the business grew, they were actually making electric cars through about 1917. And they continued to make actually auto bodies and other things through the 1940s in this plant. Because each sort of building section has sort of its own character, the emphasis is to sort of maintain the historic character of each section, and going through the process with SHPO and the National Park Service Very, very important to sort of restore the masonry, replace windows sort of selectively where necessary, and sort of maintain the character of the building. You can see that there's some nice brickwork, especially the main building on 25th Street and along 26th. And then, as Joe was mentioning, opening the alleyways back up. The picture on the right shows the West 25th Place alley as it appeared probably in the 1970s. And so trying to get back to that character.
Thanks, Larry.
Yeah.
If we could get into the site plan. So our conceptual site plan on the first floor, and I think it's important that we mention, what we're hoping to do today is focus just on the redevelopment of the existing buildings themselves. The first floor, we'd like to focus eventually on a retail or other use strategy, but just for today, what we're focusing on is our conceptual concept, which calls for parking on the first floor of the building facing West 26th Street, along with a residential lobby, leasing office, and bike storage area for both visitors as well as residents. We're also planning a fitness center on the first floor as a residential amenity. Our plans and concepts are continuing to change and evolve a little bit here. We're actually expanding the parking to include those first floor residential units shown on the plan. But our lobby and leasing office are very purposefully placed there at the corner of West 26th Street and Hancock. And the residential office, the residential lobby just inside under that covered opening that we're going to open up. The next slide will walk you just through some of the nuances with the different building elevations. And as I hope this drawing kind of illustrates, is the true segmented nature of this project. It really truly is a cluster of buildings joined together out of necessity and need over the past 100 years. Particularly important to note is how buildings 1 through 6, along with buildings 11 through 18 are historic. Building 7 is a large steel building that was erected, I want to say in 1985, is it, Larry? That building is not part of our historic review. Neither is building 9 or building 10 there. For our focus today, we'll be looking again just at the elevations proposed, keeping them largely intact with their historic look. Replacing windows as necessary, as Larry mentioned, and respecting existing facades. Could you go to the next slide there? These next few slides, again, just kind of shows the buildings as we've rendered them. This is part of our package that we presented to the Park Service and SHPO. Next slide should show the west elevation. There we go. Great, and one more slide. Showing the north elevation here. Okay, next slide. Just a quick walk through the floor plans of the building. Again, this is a concept plan that shows parking occurring on the first floor of the building at the corner of West 26th Street and Chatham, along with our leasing office, our bike storage facility, and residential lobby. We are looking at using the area identified for the small parking garage, the 7-car parking garage. We're actually repurposing that as a fitness center because we like the idea of some kind of engaged use looking out at that opened up alleyway there. The next slide brings you up into the building, and it shows the second floor of the next 3 of the various apartment uses. Apartments will average about 700 square feet. They are largely 1-bedrooms and are very consistent with the market and understanding the Ohio City market. We've currently have about 25 apartments in our United Bank building project. They perform really well, and these are largely in line with those style of units. The next 2 floors and next 2 slides. show how the apartments continue up. In the buildings at Monroe and 25th, that's a second-story building, so those pull away. And the buildings continue up with a residential use through building 3, and the next slide shows building 4 as well. All right, the next slide gets you into some selected renderings. Just again, a schematic design of what this alleyway could look like opened up. Obviously, we would ideally keep the existing bridge there as that links together to the critical buildings. But by daylighting the alleyways, it really brings in this kind of breath of fresh air. When we come back, we would have some more detailed landscape or hardscape layouts to show more animation in that alleyway there. The next slide just kind of gives you a concept idea of the design direction we're going for inside the residential suites. You'll notice also, I'm sorry, just some of the features that are being driven by the historic, by SHPO, requiring us to keep some of these elements open. And then the next few slides are just some residential amenities. We initially called for a 36 bike parking garage. We've actually expanded that into a larger parking facility in our most recent updates. The next slide shows a proposed fitness center for the residents. Then the next slide will bring you into a co-work concept that we're thinking about, again, as amenity to the residents so they can get out of their apartments and commingle in a work environment. And I believe that next slide, this shows a concept for a rooftop patio that we're looking at. There is a building called Building 12. It fronts on the alleyway. We are playing with some conceptual ideas of removing the corrugated metal facade and opening that space up for a rooftop park. This also shows another rooftop patio that may occur. This one would front on Hancock once we open that up. We are working with Daru Landscape Architects on some landscaping plans, particularly focusing on the parking lots, which would be fronting on Chatham and 25th Street, during on the 26th Street. We find that parking lot to be crucial for our residents, but we also want to make sure we pay special attention to both the fact that it's a key gateway into the project and also, has prominent 25th Street frontage. So when we come back, we will have a landscape plan that shows how we would properly screen it and address it accordingly. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right, thank you for the presentation. We'll move on to design review committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee on January 4th. As a concept, so I did not make a motion. The committee members present were very excited about the proposal, and some of the comments that they had were questions about the periods of significance established by SHPO and MPS, the possible lighting plan, especially in the alleys as well as around it, and concern about a reference vacation of West 26th Street and Hancock Avenue. And one request, if a partial facade of the West 25th Street alley could be left in place to maintain the building frontage line. And that there's one enclosed alley on West 25th that they requested kind of retaining that appearance. But overall, they were very excited about the proposal and look forward to seeing it move forward.
So thank you. Move on to landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Much like the Ohio City Design Review Advisory Committee, staff is very excited about this project and confident that not only through this commission's review, but with the extra reviews by the State Historic Preservation Office and National Park Service, the project will end up meeting the Secretary of the Interior standards. Since those other reviews, the SHPO and NPS reviews, are limited to the scope of work on the building and do not look at other potential impacts to the neighborhood properties the way we do, I just wanted to bring up the issue that this proposal references vacation of West 26th Street between Chatham and Monroe. Just since it came up at the local advisory committee and they had a strong reaction against it, and staff also feels that it's not appropriate to privatize a public street in this instance.
While our historic district ends at the center line of West 26th Street, since the parking lot is part of this larger project, it is under our purview. So we would ask the commission members to share their thoughts on that portion of the project as well. In addition to the treatments of the building, I know Mr. Del Rey just wanted to focus on the buildings, but I feel like it's, if you could provide feedback on that, that would help them moving forward as well. So again, we're very excited to see this proposal to take on this block of buildings. We just want to ensure that the historic integrity of the buildings, the neighborhood are preserved, including the historic street pattern.
Awesome, thank you. We'll then open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who would like to start us off? Okay, I'll start us off. I do agree with staff's comments and the local committee. I commend you for taking on such a large and very gnarly little project is the only words that I can grasp, because there's so many different buildings, floor elevations, extra elevations, and so forth. So I really do commend you, and I think this is a really creative reuse of the buildings and the entire site. I'm just trying to get my orientation with some of the comments about the West 25th Street elevation removal.
So this is 26 we're looking at now.
If you go back, I think 2 slides back, you'll get.
Yep.
Or if you want to go back further to the existing, the pictures they had at the beginning of the presentation, you'll get a good view of it.
Right here.
Yes, yeah, similar to just to keep the top portion of that, sure.
I got it. Okay. So like it really is down to the details if we're like in that much nitty gritty, which is excellent. I mean, overall, what you're proposing, I'm in full support of. But looking at the details that the local committee did of the small area on 25th Street, it would be nice to maybe maintain that or put a gate there for the residents to maintain the second floor brick elevation, so that you do have a continuous elevation like it does right now between Monroe and then the North Street that I Chatham. So I do think that it would be, if that can be retained, that would be good, even with the removal of the covering over that alleyway. Related to the parking lot, I'm just going to jump there because that is one of the areas that intrigued me that I kept on looking at is, are you proposing to rework the parking lots to the rear of the buildings? And then is that like a pickleball courts or something that are part of that?
We were just playing with some concepts back there. We do not have plans currently for those lots.
Okay.
The only lot that would be part of this conversation and that we have, solid plans for is the parking lot at 25th and Chatham. We own both sides through different entities, both the one at 26th and Chatham and 25th at Chatham. Ideally, we would unite them into a parking lot for the residents with careful access into the building there.
Okay. I do think it's important as you continue the development, and if you are going to take over and redevelop those parking lots, that they are be considered in the overall context of the project. I think obviously the landscaping approach would be essential and the fencing approach would be essential. I like the idea of pickleball courts, but at the same time, I do know how destructive they can be adjacent to residential projects because of the sound. So just something to think about as you're developing that. I think it would be good to have that amenity, but amenity there, but that one you just would think more about. I mean, overall, I have very minimal comments beyond that that staff hasn't already stated. So I'm in support of the project.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Lozier.
Thanks, Madam Chair. I too want to commend this group on taking sort of buildings that are sort of there today and providing a higher and better use with residential and everything. I have a couple of just questions or considerations. One of which is, right now, the existing buildings, it seems like there's a sort of a first floor datum around almost the entirety of the property that's sort of a painted, faded red. I think just paying close attention to, what you're going to do to have it feel, different. I don't know if the plan is to retuck point everything, if the intent is to repaint, or if the intent is to clean off all of that and expose the original. So just thinking about the consideration of that. The second, if you can go to the site plan again, maybe. Maybe the earlier one.
Dan, if you scroll down, I think it's I want to say it's a slide right after the historic pictures.
Yeah. I think slide 20.
There.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you. So thinking about vehicular circulation to the parking that's sort of at the first floor, it looks like there's an entry point off of West 26 to get to sort of one side of the parking. It looks like there might be a circulation path through the open sort of parking lot area, sort of in the sort of between the existing buildings and adjacent, and then the buildings as part of this project, potentially. And maybe it looks like there's another entry point off of the existing parking lot to the I'm not sure exactly which the cross street is, to the sort of right-hand side of this page. But just thinking about how vehicular circulation and pedestrian circulation happen within this complex. I don't know if this is sort of the highest and best way to sort of get the parking, to get the cars into the buildings or not, but just thinking about how those circulation streams sort of happen with one another. What else? So I'm also really intrigued by that idea of sort of that central park, concept, or that sort of that community amenity space within that sort of that open lot. And I'm really intrigued about how that continues to develop. I think that could become a really great amenity, not just for the residents here, but really bringing more people down to sort of this area of West 25th. I mean, there's been a lot of progress marching south, and I think this is really going to add to that. So thinking about how that really sort of integrates into that urban fabric, I think is really, really exciting and really compelling. If you can go to slide 16, I think. It's the one that shows sort of the sort of original sort of bird's eye drawing. This one here. So I'm assuming this is looking at the West 25th Street side and not the 26th Street side.
Yeah, that's right. This is looking from you're hovering over the entrance to the Greenway here, so you're looking at Monroe and 25th.
Awesome, thank you. So I guess one consideration or one thought here is the alignment of the facades is of course different today than it was back originally. If you look further to the right hand side where you see sort of the existing adjacent building, and there's a shorter building that has been demolished, that I think is where the open lot is. And then you see I think where the alleyway is, I think might be showing where the alleyway is that we're going to be reopening between sort of the two sort of blocks. But has there been any consideration to, I think there's a lower building that separates some of the taller buildings. Is there any consideration there of bringing it back to maybe what to infill sort of the upper floors to create more of a solid block between the two taller sections of buildings? And again, I don't know the history of how all of these things came into being or whatnot, but I think there's something about this view that provides some continuity of what this feels like as a mass, and less about sort of piecemeal buildings that have sort of progressed over time. So I don't know if there's been any thought about infilling that area or not. I mean, maybe not at this point, but.
Yeah, no, I think that's an interesting comment. We haven't really explored that idea, but I see the building that you're talking about. I think it's showing here as a 4-story building. I think currently it's, if I'm not mistaken, that's building 4, and it's a 2-story structure.
Can I address that, Joe?
Please.
Hi, this is Larry DeVita from SA again. So the original building that you're looking at to the right of the alley, that's Hancock, that's the one that's existing. There is actually originally a paired set of buildings at that point. In about 1950, the building to the left had a fire. And we had discussed that with National Park Service about sort of doing something a little bit more modern to sort of fill that in. Unfortunately, there's still enough remnants of the 1889 building there that they don't want it altered, even though the facade is from, like I said, around 1950. Yeah, no, that was a very early thought, but that has been discussed with them, and they were sort of anti trying to do anything there, unfortunately. Then one of your earlier comments was about the paint line. We've also had a discussion with National Park Service about that. They are of the opinion that the brick is probably too fragile to try and remove the paint. So what our sort of way of dealing with that is looking at each component of the building and cleaning the bricks sufficiently that we can sort of try to match the paint color, so that instead of having that 1-story datum that like runs all the way around the building, that each of the building segments would be treated differently and have sort of slightly different character to sort of, accentuate the character of each of the sections. So I don't know if there are any questions about that, but that's kind of some of the discussions that we've had about those things. So they are being thought about.
No, I appreciate that. If I can ask one more, I guess, question about the paired building that you mentioned that SHPO wanted to retain sort of that existing portion with the facade from the 50s. I guess, has there been any consideration or thought about recreating or I don't know if recreating is the right word, but instead of coming back in with a new modern facade, reconstructing or rebuilding what was there originally so that it more closely aligns and matches its former twin next door. And again, I'll defer to you all in your discussions with SHPO, but there's something nice about or something a little disjointed about the existing facade today and how it was originally and how it will continue to sort of feel into the future if it remains sort of as is.
And I understand sort of where you're coming from. At least from our discussions with the National Park Service people, they were very sort of anti of trying to recreate anything that was historical. I mean, I guess our thought was to have something that would have been sort of complementary, that kind of would have, you know, related without being, you know, ultra modern, but also not being trying to, you know, replicate 1890. Like I said, they were sort of anti doing anything to that, and like I said, because that portion of the building, remnants of it remain, they were, you know, let's preserve it the way it is presently. This was kind of the direction that we were given on that. So yeah, I mean, it is worth some additional an additional thought, but unfortunately, kind of locked into what's there.
This is Daniel. You're definitely picking up on something that was discussed at length. Very observant.
Any additional questions, Mr. Lozier? Okay. Any additional questions by the commission?
Madam Chair, just to maybe dovetail a little bit off that discussion, because the changes are over 50 years old, they have become historic in their own right. So changing them back would probably not be appropriate according to the standards. So recreating any conjectural thing, but it is of its time and shows change over time. So that's probably why you're getting pushback from the National Parks and SHPO.
No, that makes sense. So I understand and appreciate that it is historic now, so that it does now, that is the standard of the time of the building, the presence.
And I will add one more thing that, through the chair, to the applicants, to make sure that you're not only working with us staff here, but with planning as well. Your parking requirements are going to be changing very soon because it recently passed legislation with TOD and reduced parking requirements and such like that. So let's look at the configuration of all the parking and such as well, because it does affect you here more on major transit line. You're very close to the red line, so you will not need as much parking as you are probably proposing.
Interesting. So reach out to staff and they can help advise you if you're not aware of that already, so that, you know, as you continue your development, you're using the new guidelines.
Great, I appreciate that.
Oh, I'm sorry, my voice down for a second. Mr. Lozier, did you have your hand up again?
Yes, sorry. I just wanted to thank Mr. Bunyas about that interpretation. I figured that what I was suggesting or was probably not completely fitting with the secretary standards, but I do appreciate the follow up from Carl and from the applicant. So thank you.
Madam President, I have a question. Is there a timeline for this huge project?
That's a great question. We are, so we've been actively working with various lenders as well as other institutions. We are pursuing conversations with OAQDA in the state of Ohio. Obviously, this has been a challenging and evolving financial market. So we're actively engaged with various lenders right now. We've been working with Dan and Larry and our engineering teams at looking at moving this into almost like a phased project, so that we could come back with a first phase, doing, you know, half the project in this year. We are hopeful to be back in front of this committee before the summer to talk more about it.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Excellent. Well, not seeing any further questions or comments from the commission, do you feel like you received enough feedback that you can continue the development of your project?
Absolutely. Thank you for the helpful comments.
All right. Well, thank you and good luck. And we look forward to seeing your final proposal.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Now we conclude our concept plan review.
Do your minutes now.
Sorry, I'm a little overexcited there for a second ago. Now we're there. So that concludes that. We'll move on to meeting minute approval. We have 2 meeting minutes that were circulated. for review and comment. Does anyone have any feedback on the meeting minutes, or would they like to make a motion for approval? Not seeing any feedback, would someone like to make a motion for approval?
I'll move that we approve the meetings from July 22nd, 2021 and December 14th, 2023.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
This is Alan, I'll second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Dryer. Any further discussion? All right, Mr. Wilson, please call roll.
Okay, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Councilmember Gray,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick. Mr. Trasick, are you still with us? All right, and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
All right, Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Excellent. We'll move on to administrative reports.
Before you get into your report, I don't have much of any this week. Just wanted to, I guess, encourage any commission members, to come in person. I think it facilitates, discussion a little easier if we're kind of all in one place. So if people can make the effort to make it here, I would appreciate it. Plus, then when I have little, visual aids, everyone can see it.
You missed out on seeing the glass.
Yeah, we're lost. We're lost. Just kidding. That's all I have.
We did have our site visit.
Oh, yeah, we had our, was that yesterday? 2 days ago.
2 days ago.
We had a site visit to Emmanuel Methodist Presbyterian Church. I don't know what it was. Yeah, it's been a few things on East 156th Street, so we'll be seeing that the demo bureau is wanting to move forward with the demolition. We're working with the owners to, try and figure out ways to stabilize the property, come up with a game plan, that sort of thing. But we may be seeing that at our next meeting if the demolition bureau chooses to push forward. We, by law, have to consider it. So.
Okay, that's good to know. And I do not have a charity report for her.
What?
So then we will adjourn today's meeting and look forward to seeing everyone at our next meeting, which is in 3 weeks on February 8th. Is that correct? All right. Thanks, everyone, and have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you.